All right, what we're going to do today is revisit an assignment we did yesterday, or last week, excuse me, on equivalent representations. Except we're going to use Graspable Math, a program to help us with some of the algebra necessary. First, let's remind ourselves of this activity. So we were given a bunch of scenarios, and we had to come up with tables, equations, and graphs, and then answer a couple of questions about it. In this particular example, we had that it cost $10 to get into the fair and $3 per ride. So if we do our table of values, if you go on 0 rides, it still costs $10 just to get in. But if you go on 1 ride, you're going to add $3 and get $13 as the total cost. 2 rides is 16, and of course it goes on. This can be represented by the equation. Since the first difference is going up by 3, you know the slope is 3, and your 3r is the rate of change, 3 times the number of rides, plus your $10 flat rate to get in. And so we called the equation C equals 3R plus T, where capital C represented the cost and R represented the number of rides. Now, we could do all that, and that was fine. Then we had to use some algebra or use this equation to try and answer a couple of questions. The first one being, what is the cost for 12 rides? Now, we had some success doing this because 3 times R, we substituted the R as 12, and we're able to multiply 3 times 12, get 36 plus 10 equals 46, and figure out the cost. That one wasn't too difficult to type out on Google Slides. But the second one was a bit more challenging. How many rides does it cost if you paid $55? How many rides did you ride, excuse me, if you paid $55? So remember, to solve this time, we had to replace the C with 55, and you have to subtract 10 from both sides, which was a little bit difficult, more difficult to type out. Get your answer and divide both sides by 3. Now, it's pretty good. It's pretty good representation here. But then I noticed when people were trying to type it out themselves, it was a bit more challenging. And this is the problem with trying to do algebra in Google Slides, or even just typing algebra out. So this is where we're going to try and revisit this part using Graspable Math. So you can get to this website by just going right here, but I've actually got the canvas all set up for us to try and demonstrate these steps. So you can see that here's Graspable Math, and here's our equation and our questions. And this is coming straight from the scenario we just did. So scenario 1, where C equals 3R plus 10, gets retyped right up here, and we get that equation. And we're going to answer the same questions for 12 rides and a cost of $55. So how do we do that? Well, what we're going to do is take your cursor and go to the end and click on the circle and drag over here. So click and hold and drag it over here. And that just makes a duplicate of our equation so that we can manipulate this. Next, we know that the cost is 12 rides. So we can replace R equals 12. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, we need an expression to do that. So we're going to go up to Insert, and you're going to click on Insert, and we're going to write mathematical expression. So click on Math Expression. And here you get that someplace to type. So now we're going to change, since we know what 12 is R, we're going to actually type in R equals 12. And then we'll go Done. And you'll see R equals 12 pops up. Now you notice it's kind of in the way right here. So I'm going to go and drag it over here. So you can drag by going just to the left of the expression and moving it over here. Okay, and that allows you to move it. If you're struggling with finding that little crosshairs to move, you can also push the arrange button, and you get like a bunch of text boxes that you can go off and move. But we don't want it the arrange, we want it in transform menu. Okay, so you can have that and just rearrange it over here. Now, we've got our equation, and what we want to do is substitute R equals 12 right into the equation. So since R equals 12, you can actually go over here and grab the R and go and replace that R with the 12. Okay? And now you get 3 times 12 instead of 3 times R. Another thing you could do, so I'm just going to push undo, is instead of taking the R and dragging it over, I'm going to take the actual number 12 and go and replace the R with 12. Make sure it doesn't go in the C because it goes in for R. And now we've got 3 times R equals 12. Or 3 times R now becomes 3 times 12. Now, you'll notice at the end here, I've got a couple of circles. If you click and hold and drag down, you can actually start to see the steps necessary for solving this. And this is what I'm going to want to see. So 3 times 12 plus 10. To do operations in Graspable Math, all you have to do is click on the operation. So let's try and add. Wait a second, it's not working. How come I can't add these two things? That's because Graspable Math understands order of operations. Am I allowed to add 12 plus 10? No, I have to multiply first. So that's great that Graspable Math doesn't allow us to do incorrect operations. I actually have to multiply. So 3 times 12. Well, to get rid of these brackets and change it to a times, I'm going to actually click on the bracket and you see it becomes 3 times 12. And now I can actually click on the times button and it does that multiplication for me. 3 times 12 is 36. And now I can then add, and now I can add it and I get 46. And you see how all of these steps have been lined up exactly like we had done on our assignment. 3 times 12 is 36, plus the 10 gets us 46, and we get the same answer. But you can see how quick and easy it was to just have Graspable Math demonstrate these steps. Now, where it's going to really help is in this equation. How many rides for $55? Well, again, I'm going to go to the end, click and hold on the circle to replicate the equation. And now, though, it's how many rides cost $55. That means I know my C. So I'm going to go back up and insert math expression, and I'm going to put capital C equals 55 and push done. Now it's important that I put a capital C because this is a capital C, so in order to substitute it needs to be the same letter. If you put a small c, it's not going to work. So I'm just going to drag the 55 so it's over here. Now, C equals 55, I can either drag the C or I can take the 55, and I think I'll take the 55 and I'll put it in for cost. Now again, I'm going to show the steps by dragging the white bubbles down, and we get this. Now, it's replaced 55 just like with the brackets, just like it did here. But there's no operation to do there, so I'm just going to click on the brackets and get rid of them. And I don't need these two steps, so I'm actually going to now, instead of dragging down, I'm going to take the bubble and drag up and just get it to this. So it looks like I've just replaced the 55. Now what I need to do is solve. Now, remember, my next step to solve is to subtract 10 from both sides. Now, here's a little warning. Some of you have already seen me demonstrate Graspable Math, where you were able to take this 10 and move it to the other side. I've disabled that feature right now so that this will look like the same operations that we do here. So we're going to have to do the operations to both sides. Okay, so the dragging from one side to the other, I've disabled for this example. All right, so that means I have to actually do the operation, which is the inverse operation, and subtract. How do I do that? I need to click on the equal sign and hold it until this pops up. This capital E stands for the equation. And to whatever I'm going to do to the E is going to do the whole equation. So I can enter an operation that will happen to both sides. Well, the inverse operation of plus 10 is minus 10. So I'm going to push minus 10 and push done. And look what it does. It actually subtracts 10 from both sides. Now, you remember that my preference is to put the minus 10 underneath and have us work like this. That's no problem. This, it puts it right at the end. Both of these are equally acceptable. So it doesn't put it underneath, but it does put it to the side, and it still does the same thing, subtract 10 from both sides. Now let's actually do the operations. So if I click on the subtract, you can see that that disappears, and click on this subtract, and it does those operations, and I get down to this line, which is the same as the line that we have here, 45 equals 3r. Now, I'm just going to move this back up so I can do both of those operations. You see, like it's like I've done this operation, in the same step. All right, what's my next thing? Well, now I need r by itself. So I have to divide both sides by 3. So I had to do some little underline tricks and red ink and everything to demonstrate it here, but here it's much easier. Again, if you've seen me use this before in another demo, I dragged it across. I've disabled that feature. So we actually have to divide both sides by 3. So let's click and hold the equal sign. And there's our E. And now we're going to divide both sides by 3. And it'll do that to both sides. And now I've got 45 divided by 3 equals 3r divided by 3. And now to do the division, you actually click on the division bar and you get 15, and click on the division bar and you get R equals 15. Again, I'm going to move this up so it looks like I did the division in both divisions in one step. And regardless, I get R equals 15, which is the same answer I got over here. But you can see how this was a challenge to actually type out and doesn't quite look as nice as this representation. And I get that the rides, you got on 15 rides for $55. Okay? So this is a great, great tool to demonstrate algebraic steps. And I'm going to challenge you now to do the next 3 scenarios. Not all of the graphing and everything, just the algebra that we needed to do at the end. So you can pause, you can push the end right now and try the next questions on your own. But what I'm just going to demonstrate one more example of this really quickly so that we understand all the buttons to push. So in scenario two is it costs $10 an hour for snowboard lessons plus a $40 lift ticket. So the $40 is the flat rate and the $10 per hour is the rate of change. In this first example, it was backwards. So we got to make sure we pull the right information to get a right equation. So the $10 per hour, you're going to take 10 times the number of hours, and that'll be 10h. And your flat rate is 40, so it'll be plus 40. So you'll see that I've actually written that equation out for you. C equals 10h plus 40. Let's use this equation to answer our 2 questions. So again, I'm going to click on that and drag it over so I can duplicate it. All right, in this case, the cost is, what is the cost for 2.5 hours? So I need to go Insert, Math, and I now know that H equals 2.5. Push done and drag it over so it's out of the way. Now we can take the 2.5 and substitute it in for H. Again, I'm going to highlight all the steps by dragging the white bubbles down. I need to do the math operation. I got to multiply first, so I'm going to change that to a multiply and times, and I get 25 plus your 40 is 65. And that's the cost for 2.5 hours. Now I can do it again over here. Click and drag and duplicate it. This time though, I want to figure out what H is if C is 72.5. So I'm going to go over and push Insert, Math Equation. Capital C equals $72.50. Now when I push done, you'll see that Graspable Math has changed $72.50 into 72.5, and that's fair. You don't actually need that other zero. So I'll drag that so it's out of the way. And I can either take this capital C, again, remember it has to be a capital C, and replace it, or I can take the 72.5 and put it in for C. And you'll see that step. Again, I will click on that so it's by itself and drag it down so I can see this step. Remember, I need to now subtract both sides by 40. So I'm going to push and hold the equal sign until it pops up. Subtract 40 from both sides and push done. And you'll see that each of those steps is there. I can now subtract 40 from this side and from this side, and I get down in this step. I'll just move this up so it looks like I've done both of these subtractions in one step. Subtracting 40 gets me 32.5. I'm now going to divide both sides by 10. So again, I'm going to click equals and hold it, and I need to divide both sides by 10 and push done, and you see those operations. Now if I pick the divide bar here, I get this, and now if I push the divide bar, it's sort of not letting me, and it says try a double tap. So it's because of the decimal. So if I try a double tap, it'll actually solve it for me. And I'm going to move this up so it appears that I've done both of those steps in one. And it turns out then if you paid $72.40, you had a 3.25 hour lesson. The $40 went towards the lift ticket to get in, and then the rest went towards paying your instructor. And you got 3.25 hours, which is actually 3.25 hours and 3 hours and 15 minutes. All right. Okay. So now what you can do is I'm going to let you go off and do the algebra necessary for the next two. And you just scroll down, and I have them all set up for you for the wedding reception, and then the one where you needed to subtract the um, $50 a week, where it was negative $50 per week. All right, so you can go off and try those on your own, and hopefully you'll really appreciate using Graspable Math to demonstrate these algebra steps. Good luck.